Hi, just to give you a quick content warning for this episode, we talk about imperialism and colonialism in the modern day, but there's quite a lot of mentions of like racism, slavery, torture, animal cruelty, ethnic cleansing, and so on. So just be advised.
Hello and welcome back to Podcasting as Praxis. I'm Dave, my pronouns are he and him.
I'm Jamie, and my pronouns are he and him.
I'm Rob, mine he and him.
And I'm Alistair, my pronouns are also he and him.
We did it.
What's the one in a row?
Same as we do every week. Smooth professionalism. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the podcast. We don't want to be.
Well, you know, it's the ongoing, you know. For some reason, my brain got stuck on like how would I like explain this podcast to other people, and I used to be like, no, it's essentially like a chronicle. It's a chronicle of the downfall of Britain, and you know, like that's we're back for another issue. This time, let's go back to a grateful topic from before.
Back for another issue is the title of my sex tape.
Circling the toilet of eternity. That's mine.
Well, Alistair, you're free to circle as long as you like, as long as there's not a fucking mirror in there, because, you know, the British schooling system is at it again. There was a piece... There was a piece on the BBC website by Sarah May Bukieri, I hope I pronounced that correctly, quote, "A school has removed all mirrors from its toilets because pupils are spending too much time in them."
What, like fucking...
What, in the middles?
Yeah,
Stuck in middles.
It's a little worrying,
yeah,
because it's not quite defined.
Students spending too much time in Wonderland and too much time at tea.
Yeah.
Detention will be held in the Phantom Zone.
I was sat here trying to remember what that was called, so I wouldn't have to make a joke about that. That fucking rectangle from Superman.
It's better referred to as that fucking rectangle, I think, actually. Yeah.
Children on school holidays spending too much time in Wonderland in cupboard, study finds.
Fuck off. That fucking rectangle works really well, actually, because that could either be that fucking rectangle from Superman or Wes Streeton, both of which are fate worse than death.
But anyway, the reason that like the mirrors had to be removed from the school bathrooms was this is of course an academy. It's not a normal
Clowns
school.
appear in them when nobody's looking.
Grant Edgar, head teacher of the William Farr Comprehensive School in Welton, near Lincoln, said, "Mirrors can encourage students to spend too much time in toilets, often in large groups."
Yeah, man.
Students are supposed to be spending their time trapped in notebooks with biker gangs instead.
Honestly, I mean, are they taking the mirrors off the wall and doing fucking rails off them? Is that what the problem is?
I mean, that would be awesome, but no. Apparently, like they are just having, human conversations in the bathroom.
Yeah, these students also suspiciously look like birds.
Yeah. They're
taking away the auto feeders on the side of the building as well.
Throw a fucking blanket over the classroom to make them all be quiet.
Dozens dead after teacher sneezes too loud.
Jamie Oliver getting incredibly mad because you keep hanging fat balls on the school gates.
Yeah, this is my Thai Indian fusion ball without any of the fat. Shut the fuck up, Jamie.
And here's a song to go with it.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, no. Apparently, it was a real problem for this particular academy because, again, this is the head teacher.
Because
I mean,
of
obviously, it's a fucking academy, right?
Yeah, it's because it was affecting the school's transition times, which I assume between classes and not, the cool transition.
Oh my
times.
god, they're transing the kids in between classes. The children are spending too much time with the mirrors. Fucking hell.
I mean. And also, again, quote the head teacher, they were affecting the punctuality to lessons.
Oh no.
So, the children were looking at themselves in the mirror for all of 3 seconds, and that, cut the efficiency of teaching time down to some unmanageable level.
Yeah, is this a guy who operates like one of those business planning exercise interview question things where, like, if they don't tell you the amount of time it takes to go through the corridor, then it takes no time at all?
But it's not all bad news for children. If you do need like a mirror, one may be provided to you. Quote: if students require a mirror for a medical purpose, they can ask for one at the school's reception desk.
Going down to the fucking pharmacy to get my prescription mirror.
Yeah, what kind of like, are they performing surgery on themselves or something?
It's just, I don't know. If you're just like, look,
doing
I'm
that one
really
bit from
worried.
Master and Commander on one of the fucking tables in the dining hall.
Look, if you just have like, a certificate from your doctor that says that you're very anxious about turning into a vampire, then you can just ask for the mirror.
Get a certificate from the doctor that says you have a reflection.
Also,
Are they going to have to like? Are they going to have
The
to
predators?
sand, like,
the predators' parents are absolutely furious. This is discrimination.
Are they going to have to like destroy all the reflective surfaces, or is it just mirrors? Like children glaring at like a fucking doorknob because it's been buffed slightly too much.
This is a fucking Doctor Who episode.
It is.
Tell me otherwise.
Yeah.
The Doctor Who episode where like the history teacher's like a Medusa or something like that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Exactly. Head teacher Grant Edgar said, "We have to cut down on ancient heroics between class times."
Oh.
Also, what fucking school has a reception? Mine didn't have a fucking reception. You just walked in and went to class.
No, that's kind of normal, I think. My school had a reception, but it was literally just a desk, like where the secretary sat and did whatever they need to do. So, yeah. I think they were there for when the police turned up, so that someone was there when the police turned up.
Yeah, the holding cells.
Yeah, no mention as to whether or not the holding cells of this particular academy still have them mirrors, yay or nay. But also for a rare change of good news, I bring you good news, or rather, the Labour Party brings you good news.
I don't believe you.
Well, you say this, but 75 councils out of 315 or so will receive £1.5 billion between them to make things nicer and better.
If you said each, I would be like, okay, but between them doesn't sound so good.
It's not that bad,
15,
by the magic of basic math.
1,500 divided by 75 is 20 million English pounds per council.
You could I don't know, do something with it. It's not nothing. It's not, it's less shambolic than normal.
Change down the back of the sofa is not nothing, but it doesn't buy me a fucking functional economy, does it?
Well, you'll be pleased to hear, Alistair, that it might be 20 million per council, but it will be spread out over the next decade. So it's more like 2 million a year.
Fucking hell.
Optimistically, that could be up to 7 houses per year.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
Yeah, exactly. And, if you have to do some soil remediation, on the haunted petrol station to make the grey land available, you could have, a shipping container there in, 3 years. It'd be awesome.
wow, this plane is extraordinarily flat, and fortunately it's quite low down, so it won't obstruct the view of the houses that are already there. Oh no, there appears to be a floodplain in this location. That's most unfortunate.
I mean,
What's
I do
that
think
doing,
that
Neil?
I'm not entirely sure, but I do think this might be like a re-announcement of the same thing that they announced in December. And I think this is all probably due to counter the latest NAO report, our pals, which basically came out today and said, about half of all UK councils are currently at severe risk of bankruptcy because they now have a collective 4.6 billion deficit. But, they're getting $1.5 billion spread out over 10 years. So, don't you worry your pretty little head about that.
And that's 75 councils out of how many? Like 300?
Oh, about 315. Yeah. So, you're looking at slightly under a quarter.
Yeah, well, the rest of those guys can go fuck themselves. They get nothing. Good luck.
Yeah. And they should be grateful for it.
Mm-hmm. So,
it could be worse. You could have West Street and come to your council area and just cause everyone to become immensely more miserable than they already are.
So this report is slightly different from the NAO because they say that specifically this huge amount of bankruptcies could hit as early as March 2026. And you're like, well, that seems reasonably specific. And you'd be correct because a lot of this has to do with specifically with funding for kids with special education needs and disabilities, or SEND, which was devolved to councils for funding all of that under the Tories.
Or as both Labour and the Tories like to refer to them, a burden.
Yes, the little burdens. That's the language you've never heard before.
Those ingrate children who just, insist upon themselves, as people have been saying a lot lately.
Yeah, so along with the privatized child social care and adult social care, which we talked about previously in, episode 268, don't listen to that if you're not having a good day. So the cost of this is gone up by a lot, according to the NAO. It went from about 60 billion a year for SEND needs to almost 73 billion in 2024, while waitlists have gotten, substantially longer than before. So everything's going swimmingly. But the reason why March 2026 is apparently a crucial deadline is the Tories knew that a whole bunch of councils were going bankrupt because of them needing to fund child social care and special educational needs. So what they did instead of paying councils this is from The Guardian, the Tory government introduced a scheme known as the statutory override, which allowed councils to temporarily keep SEND debt off the balance sheet, in effect papering over the problem. However, this special measure was planned to end by March 2026, by which the accumulated deficit for all councils in England is expected to have reached £4.6 billion. Because at that point, all the debt is no longer in the ghost dimension, but actually lands, back on the balance sheet. At which point, a whole bunch of councils will simply go.
Have
bang.
they tried hiding all the mirrors though to keep it in the Phantom Zone, aka that fucking rectangle?
Do you know what's very cool though? The fact that this is like a stick of dynamite under pretty much every council set to detonate 2 months before the local elections next year, which already looks bad for Labour. And obviously this is a catastrophe in and of itself, because the fact that local councils, local government can just go bankrupt, a thing. Local governments being a thing which kind of just needs to exist, at least in the society that we have at the moment.
Yeah, well, we'll just sell them all to fucking Pepsi or something. It'll be fine.
Well, we talked about council bankruptcies before, and technically they can't. So what happens is when a council goes bankrupt, the government steps in and wipes the debt clean. But in exchange for all that, they do gut every last remaining bit of social provision and the stuff that actually makes your local area livable, and put up council taxes to extreme
turbo
heights.
austerity.
Yeah. And I assume that doing that 2 months, as you say, before the local elections will work out absolutely fucking swimmingly. But don't worry about it.
It's miserable, but at least it'll be very funny when Labour eats shit. But like I say,
well, you say that you say that, Alistair, but I was informed. At least I went away for a few days right before the weekend, and I was informed when I left that Keir Starmer was the world's greatest diplomat and everybody loved him again.
Yeah,
And
a political titan standing athwart the globe.
Yeah,
Exactly.
second coming
Massive
of
trousers.
Churchill.
Yeah. So, but past Friday morning, I just fucked off up the big mountain for a couple of days, and my entire timeline and the papers were full of how brilliant Starmer had done with he'd gone to America and he'd met Trump and he'd sent him an invitation to come meet the king with the big hands. And then he said, I'll be the bridge between the US and the EU, and we'll keep the Ukraine war going, and everything's fucking incredible. And the entire UK press corps, as I was reading it on the train, told me that, this was brilliant, and he'd played a blinder, and, everything was going super well. Newsnight, in fact, went so far as to call it game, set, and match. So, like, your council might be bankrupt, but you're being led by a great statesman. So, vote Labour.
How did that look when you came down the mountain?
Well, I was actually messaging David about this when I came down the mountain, because I went out of phone signal range. And it turned out that right after Starmer had left, Zelensky came by and had a great meeting in the White House. And everything
Went
just
really
went
well,
I hear that went great.
It went super fucking well. It wasn't at all like a televised yelling match from Trump, that fucking idiot JD Vance against Zelensky. And since then, or at least since yesterday, Trump suspended all military aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, see, just before we got onto that, I just want to just go back to Starmer's wonderful diplomacy first. We all seen the video where he was talking and Trump cut him off and asked if Britain was able to take on Russia alone, and he just kind of didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Or that one bit where he was talking about something and Trump told him just to fucking shut up, that's enough. And he just stood there completely blindsided by it, because what the fuck else were you expecting, you stupid prick? Why did you go and meet him? What would it have achieved?
No,
Special
Dave,
relationship.
You're missing the forest. You're missing the trees for the forest, or whatever the fuck. Because the important thing is that they all get to pretend like Starmer and his coterie of limpets and hangers-on and all the fucking idiot journalists that love war so much. They all get to pretend that they're in the fucking West Wing.
Yeah, that fucking picture of them, for fuck's sake.
Yeah,
but I'm disappointed that there was 2 meetings in the White House and nobody axe-kicked JD Vance in his stupid fucking head.
Yeah,
because that would make good television.
Yeah, I mean, I still wouldn't forgive David Lammy, but it would go some way.
Could have just lured him out of the estate with a particularly appetising sofa.
For real though, I hate that cunt. There's just something about him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Fantastically though, because Starmer went home with the press corps just blowing smoke up his fucking ass, but because Trump didn't inform us that he was going to cut all aid to Ukraine, so Starmer went out to tell the House of Commons, quote, "I have not seen reports that the US is withdrawing support from Ukraine."
I mean, it's so fucking funny. It's so fucking funny when one of the total fucking maniacs that is at the helm of the United States does something even more egregious than any of the previous maniacs, right? Like the fucking Musk's Heil Hitler, fucking Trump cutting off the support to Ukraine, and they just say, I do not know what you are referring to, for I live in the Phantom Zone with all the debt.
Has anyone set every one of them else completely ahead yet by just quoting "in the loop" with the "he's out the loop" bit? Because that should be enough to get them all baying for his fucking blood.
Yeah, so but then the press had half a day of saying, hang on a tick, was going to, Washington and behaving like, Trump's little lapdog and inviting him for a state visit really such a good idea? Have we kind of fucked the dog on this whole thing? But no, we didn't, because, coming back, there was another big summit where all the countries that are not called the United States but are in NATO got together and said, we will still fund Ukraine with all the guns and bombs, and, don't you worry about it. So then, a couple hours after that, I was once again told by everybody that this, not the previous trip to Washington, was actually the Churchill bomb. It was really good. That's because, among the other things, Starbucks suggested a coalition of the willing to send boots on the ground in Ukraine.
Really?
Yeah, he literally said, he used the phrase coalition of the willing.
Does he want to maybe rethink that?
I doubt it, because,
and after we inevitably beat back the, perfidious Ruskies, it will be a triumph of the willing. Hooray!
Yeah, exactly.
I can't wait to see him invent ISIS 2.
Well, the reason he would be prepared to put boots on the ground in Ukraine was, at least if you believe Keir Starmer,
To prompt the Third World War?
No, almost. If you want to preserve the peace, you have to be prepared to defend the peace.
Yeah, that's why we cut foreign aid. It's definitely not because it's something that we wanted to do, and we calculated that because the right-wing press in this country has turned the brains of two-thirds of the country's population to mush, that we could get away with it this time, even though it was something that we have wanted to do since our fucking inception. Yeah,
but it's just the particular brain slurry that worries me more at the moment is just that the entire press corps went from, oh my god, he played a blinder, to, oh my god, he's fucking terrible, to, oh my god, he's such a great statesman in under 48 hours. You're getting some real fucking whiplash.
I mean, it just, it just.
And where are the press corps at now that Zelensky's gone back to Trump and called him a great leader or whatever?
Oh, that's great, because apparently this is the great influence that Starmer has, because I think what legitimately happened was that Starmer and Macron just went to Zelensky and said, no, you are gonna have to sell off half your country to this guy, because for the next 5 years, whilst we gear up and buy all the guns and bombs, we are not actually capable of defending you.
Yeah, I mean, God, yeah, I mean, it'd probably be fine if we put fucking NATO boots on the ground in Ukraine. I can't imagine anything arising out of that.
Yeah, turns out we talk a good game, mate, but,
Yeah, and also, once again, I asked this question, it's just all this, is big talk about oh yeah, we're going to put the fucking, we're going to put the squaddies down and it's going to be fucking incredible. It's yeah, okay, and then the Russians will say, because I think they already have, we will never accept, the presence of UK or German or French troops on our border, because, that's kind of part of the reason they went to war in the first place. If the Russians say, we will not fucking accept that, then what do you do?
Yeah,
get someone else from the UN. There's plenty of people in there, right?
Yeah, once again, if you want to do things like put NATO troops on Russia's border, a nuclear power, you should have done something about that nuclear power thing 30 years ago, huh? No?
No.
I mean, it was inconvenient then.
Just ask China to put peacekeepers in there. I'm sure everyone will be fine with that.
That would be the fucking comedy option. I would love that. Fucking
yeah, what we need,
PLA.
What we need is an honest broker. President Xi.
Yeah. Our continent is very sick.
Our people yearn for boots on the
ground. Yeah. It's either that or get the fucking African Union in.
Yeah, but that'll never fucking happen, because the European caliper mind cannot comprehend.
Yes. But that's why it would possibly be the funniest outcome. Europe would fucking destroy itself over that.
Well, I mean, Europe in response to all of this,
rather than have that.
Fucking von der Leyen announcing today that, oh yeah, we've decided that you can actually break all the idiot fiscal rules that we have, but only if for death and guns and bombs.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to repeat myself from a few episodes ago, but okay, so we can whiz up 800 billion out of thin fucking air in all of 3 days, but for the climate it's not appropriate, or healthcare, or helping poor people or whatever.
I mean, you just have to be the most naive fucking rube, so a journalist, to ever believe that the capitalist institution that is the European Union or the United Kingdom ever wanted to do anything else other than, the bombing and the guns and whatnot, and not maybe our people shouldn't live in total fucking misery and, poverty.
Yeah, but
Fuck
I right before we started recording, I saw an article where Rachel Reeves said that they want at least some of that defense money to go to, underdeveloped northern regions because they can make bombs there.
Yeah, we're gonna supercharge homemade weaponry.
Oh man, you know what we just need to do? Do you reckon we could retool as Praxis Arms Limited or something like that?
Probably.
Like we'll just
do any of us know a Tory from school? That would be the question.
Oh, loads, but none of the rich ones.
Oh, well. Well. It was a good idea while it lasted. Anyway, if you have a shed and, we could do, if we just rent a shed, we could drop ship tasers from China and sell them to the army. That'd be a fucking incredible bit.
This is an ad break on Podcasting as Praxis. This advert is for the Patreon of Podcasting as Praxis. On the Patreon of Podcasting as Praxis, you will get at least 2 monthly bonus episodes of Podcasting as Praxis, where we discuss lots of topics, including new types of guy, celestial boondoggles, monetizing whale shit, and, reluctantly, Scott Paul. You will also be able to join the Podcasting as Praxis Discord, a place to talk with like-minded people about lots of topics, including new types of guy, celestial boondoggles, monetizing whale shit, but not Scott Paul, and also, of course, Podcasting as Praxis. If that isn't enough Podcasting as Praxis for you, the Discord also includes a bonus channel where we post the bits that don't make the final cut of the episodes. Fans of both mediocre and bad podcasting have everything to gain by subscribing to the Patreon of Podcasting as Praxis. You will also no longer get ads on episodes of Podcasting as Praxis. £5 a month will get you all of that and maybe more at patreon.com/ you guessed it, Praxiscast. That's patreon.com/Praxiscast, the place where we sell Podcasting as Praxis.
Anyway, for tonight's main bit, there was one other sort of sequence of events that sort of played out alongside all the big drama of Starmer visiting Trump, and that is the story of the Chagos Islands. I don't know if you guys saw anything. It was sort of in the papers as well that that was part of the reason he was there, to get a new deal for the Chagos Islands. And basically, I was just I have no idea what the fuck's going on there.
Didn't Trump just basically go, yeah, whatever, cool, and give a big thumbs up?
He did, because he also doesn't fucking know what's going on, but it's not finalized yet. So basically, out in the genuine absolute middle of nowhere,
join us tonight as we ask, what is a Chagos Island?
Essentially, yes. Because I didn't know, so I assumed that everybody else is as stupid as me. So, that's how we create this episode.
This is the one that, when they get their independence, all the fucking, Silicon Valley hipsters will need to find new web addresses.
No, that's something, that's a different thing, and I can't remember what it is, but basically this is a sort of an archipelago of, I think, up to 1,000 very small islands and coral reefs and shit like that. And a lot of people, especially on the right, are very mad about the Chagos Islands right now. So yeah, I just kind of thought let's talk about what the fuck's going on there. The first thing to know, by the way, which is why it's a bit trickier to read about it, is journalists are not allowed on the island. So it's all the reporting is literally done at a distance.
That sounds fucking amazing. Can we have that here, please?
It sounds like a fucking utopia. It's no wonder everyone wants it.
Yeah. I've just looked it up, and it is the one that they have the .io domain.
Oh, really?
So so if they decide to take that and use it themselves, then all the fucking dipshits who thought it was cool to have a .io address have to give it up now.
Yeah, but then also our pals over at Cornish Beatty have to give up Operation Glad.io, which would be really sad.
True.
Yeah.
But I don't think
What a land of
we should let that
contrasts.
stand in the way of the self-determination of a people. So
Yeah, that's just... I don't know. But yeah, the
maybe they can get
.io...
special dispensation to keep it as long as it's funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The .io is actually, it stands for Indian Ocean, because technically the Chagos Islands are not like, they're not on overseas, they are on overseas territory, but not like in any sort of recognized legal sense. Like the British government has spent almost 40 years pretending that nobody lives there and has never lived there, and therefore they can sort of, it's this weird legally question mark area. They do have like an actual administrative unit that like runs the island, but it's just a commissioner and like a who's appointed by King Charles and works out of the Foreign Office with like a teeny tiny staff. So they don't work on the island to administer the island. The on-island administrator is the commander of UK forces on the main island, which is Diego Garcia. And the reason you might know...
It's just some guy playing Tropico, but shitting Britishly.
Yeah, well, I mean... We'll get into the history in a moment, but I think if anybody like knows of the Chagos Islands, they'll know it because it's Diego Garcia, which is the joint US-UK military and naval base. And if that rings any bells, it's probably because it was either a CIA black site for torture during the War on Terror, or it was used at some point for extraordinary rendition flights. It was
that's the one I know it from.
Yeah, exactly. Just technically speaking, by the way, because the speculation by some journalists is that like the CIA had like ships moored in the harbor where they were like torturing suspects of terror. And then when asked about this, the Home Secretary at the time, Jack Straw, said, "Well, people weren't
I never even heard of Chagos."
No, he said, "I've heard about it," but he said, this is the quote, he said, "Well, what I can guarantee to you is that people were not disembarked for the purpose of torture. But if it was on a ship and they never embarked, then they were tortured there, but, not technically with their feet on the island itself."
Oh, well, that's all right then.
Yeah, sound like that fucking guy from the start of Half-Life 2. The trains, they never arrive, but they never leave.
Yeah.
Boats, they never disembark, but they're always there in the bar.
So, like, some little bit of history, because it is like kind of relevant to where this is all heading. It's a lot of small islands. Like I said, the biggest one is named Diego Garcia. It's named after an early Portuguese explorer, and it's this really widely spread out archipelago. Like even among this grouplet, there's like you sometimes have to like travel by boat for days to get from one teeny tiny island to the other. The main one, the most important one, being Diego Garcia. And in 1814, the UK took ownership of Mauritius and the Chagos Islands from France after defeating France in the Napoleonic naval wars. So oceans are now battlefields. It is really it is at that time, and because the French lost, we got Mauritius and we got this little group of islands in the middle of nowhere. I should also say, by the way, that like Mauritius and Chagos are not like close to each other either. They're about, as the crow flies, about 2,200 kilometers apart from each other. So there is some distance because ocean's big. And in most ways, like if you were to like draw shit on a map and say where does country live, you would never group Mauritius and these Chagos Islands together. It doesn't make any sense unless, of course, you realize that it's the result of colonialism, land grabs, and naval wars between France and Great Britain.
Oh, what's the deal with this? What's the deal with this strange 2.2 kilometer long rectangle? Huh.
Yeah. So when fast forward like a lot, I mean, what happened in the meantime is like the British either for the longest time didn't care until they established like a small number of sugarcane and coconut plantations for which they imported slaves to run the operations there, and that's how
Still got it, baby.
the population of the Chagos Islands, called the Chagosians, I think I pronounced that correctly, how they got to be there. There's between 1,000 and 2,000 of them, depending on how you count the numbers. So we fast forward to about the 1960s, and it's post-World War II, and Britain is sort of dismantling the empire because it can't, financially keep it going anymore. And at that time, because the British had a lot of bases and, colonial holdings all across the Indian Ocean, they were retreating. But at that time, they were approached by the US, who asked, I know you're leaving, but, do you maybe have, a spare unpopulated island somewhere in the middle of the Indian Ocean, where we can build a big naval and air base? And the Brits said, oh, yeah, we have one of those kicking around. It's called the Chagos Islands. And the reason that, the US didn't want to, own the island outright for themselves is because this was the 1960s and everything that was going on at the time. And the US didn't want to be seen as a new colonial power. They just wanted the benefits of one, but they wanted to do it under somebody else's flag, essentially, for diplomatic reasons.
Yeah, they just love building bases in other people's backyard,
Yeah, exactly. So what happened is the UK bought the Chagos Island from Mauritius for £3 million, which is, not a lot of money, and then created the British Indian Ocean Territory, which is the sort of formal state descriptor for what this is, and then leased the whole base to the Americans to build a big base on top. They leased the island of Diego Garcia for the Americans to build the base on top of. And if you're wondering, and this is also, Jamie, to get back to your point about .io, this is where you get it from, because .io means .Indian Ocean. It's the BIOT, it's the British Indian Ocean Territory, which is the Chagos Islands. And if you're wondering why were the Americans so interested in this particular base, in this particular place, I'll give you a brief summary from a horrible report by the Policy Exchange, which went into some detail as to why we should never give it up, but whatever. But the summary of why it's so important to the US and the UK is quite decent. Quote, when looking at strategic options for military action in the Indian Ocean and unimpeded access by sea and air to the bordering countries in the Indian Ocean, from South Africa past Somalia, Yemen, Iran, the Arabian Gulf, the Indian subcontinent, Indonesia and Australasia, Diego Garcia is a strategic jewel, possession of which is crucial for the security of our security in the region and hence our national security. It allows coverage of the choke points of the Cape of Good Hope, the Bab al-Mandeb, the Straits of Hormuz, and the Malacca Straits, through which almost 40% of all global trade passes. Basically, by having this island, by having these airstrips in particular, you can have long-range bombers like B-52s that can go to war pretty much anywhere at any time. And also deny passage through, the Persian Gulf and, choke off oil to the rest of the world if it were to become necessary.
Oh, I'm sure the Americans were very responsible with that.
Yeah, I mean, it was subsequently used a lot during, the Iranian Revolution in the 80s, the global war on terror, the First Iraq War, Second Iraq War, the anti-piracy actions on the Somalian coast, a lot of shit goes down there. Plus the aforementioned, black sites and CIA, rendition and, all that good shit. Before they started building though, there was one small issue in the way. I mentioned them before. It's the Chagosians. They were the about 2,000 descendants from the original African slaves brought over for sugarcane and coconut plantations. And in the 1960s, the British just said, well, the Americans need a base now, get the fuck out. And we forcibly displaced the entire population.
Oh, wow. Is that ethnic cleansing that I hear?
That is ethnic cleansing.
It certainly resembles ethnic cleansing, yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine we didn't call it that, though.
No, it's fine. No. Someone makes a new term for that every week. I'm pretty sure the Israelis figured out a new one last week.
Well, I mean, we figured out a good one as well in the 1960s, is because it was such a colonial holding for the longest time, the UK had never given Chagosians the right to own property on their own islands. So the British, legally speaking, pretended that these islands were never permanently settled and could therefore, there may have been people there, but they weren't legally there because they didn't have a piece of paper that said, this is mine.
Yeah, it's just a hunk of rock that just happens to have people on it who we're gonna. And then the Americans are gonna come in, and it's gonna be great.
Well, you say some people on it, but this is a note from the Foreign Office written in the 1960s about all this. Quote: the Chagosians were described as some few Tarzans and Man Fridays whose origins are obscure and are hopefully being wished onto Mauritius.
Origins are obscure. Yeah, no one knows how these fucking guys got here. Don't look back past the 20th century, please.
Yeah, all the plantations which are still extant on the island outside the base,
Yeah, the sugarcane just loves growing on its own in huge fucking fields. Just a monoculture. Yeah, it loves it.
Yeah, as part of their...
You ever just fucking hate a country?
Yes.
On the regular. I hate all countries, but
every day I wake up and it's Britain.
So as part of their expulsion, what the British did was simply cut off all food supplies to the islanders to make them leave. And as they were herded onto the boats and tried to take their pets with them, the British said, no, you can't take their pets, and literally executed the dogs on the beach while, their owners were looking on the forcibly displacement boat.
Fuck's sake.
What happened to them is, again, there's about 2,000 of them. They were basically dumped off in shanty towns in the Seychelles, on Mauritius, and some of them came over to Britain as well. All of this, by the way, the magnificent prize that Britain won for forcible displacement and giving over part of your territory to an American base was in exchange for a $14 million discount on Polaris nuclear missiles.
Cool.
Oh, well, that's a deal that stood the test of time.
Yeah, exactly. So this initial deal between the UK and the US was signed for about 50 years, this lease of the base on Diego Garcia. But when Mauritius became an independent country in 1965, like I said, the British bought the Indian Ocean overseas territory from Mauritius for £3 million, and it became separated from Mauritius, although against UN law, because decolonization and the UK and the UN people still paid attention at the time, and they said this is not a legal process because the separation was unlawful.
I mean, there's your international rules-based order, nothing has changed.
Yeah,
Rules
absolutely.
for me, but not for me.
Yeah, so since their forcible displacement, obviously the Chagosians have in various courtrooms and at various times, tried to assert their right to what is their land. It's undoubtedly their land. The British, however, came up with an increasing series of ways of first just simply fucking ignoring them, and then when that became no longer quite practical, because there were a number of lawsuits filed in the 2000s about land restoration, what they did is they created and presented this as a green initiative in 2006 or 2009.
Fucking hell.
They created, quote unquote, the world's largest marine preservation park around the 55 islands around Diego Garcia, which would have stored the right of return because you can't put up permanent buildings inside a marine preservation park as the rules stand, but you can have a naval base. And also, can then
imperialism with green aspects. We fucking love it. Hell yeah.
Yeah, and also specifically, this all came out as part of the diplomatic cable that was leaked with WikiLeaks. This was by design because they said, well, even if some of the Chagosians come back, because this is now a marine preservation, they can't fish because that would be illegal
Fucking hell.
I mean, but by all accounts, the wildlife, and specifically the marine wildlife and the coral reefs around this base and in the Chagos Islands, is of extraordinary beauty, because literally, like, nobody's allowed to go there except like some destroyers and some, CIA, fucking torture barges, I guess. So this U.S. military base at Diego Garcia is, like I said, it's you could project a huge amount of power all across the Indian Ocean and, like, into the Arabian Gulf, into the Straits of Malacca, Indonesia, everywhere essentially. Conveniently, it's also located like outside the sort of cyclone belt, and because there's some deep trenches around it, it's very well sheltered from like tsunamis and big waves. Like, if you wanted to have like an airbase and like a marine facility, this is about as perfect as it gets. Because the Diego Garcia is long enough for bomber runways that are long enough for B-52s and B-2 bombers, i.e. the long-range bombers that you would use if you wanted to throw nuclear missiles around. Not from a missile launch, essentially.
Yeah,
a bomb rather than a ballistic missile.
Yeah, exactly. It's also, reading between the lines, it's also a massive NSA spying and listening hub. They keep, saying like, oh, we put up some more radar domes and listening posts. It's like, I wonder what you're doing. And probably there's also a docking station that's capable of servicing nuclear launch submarines. So this is a very, very, if in the sort of, realpolitik horrible world that we live in, this is a very important island.
I know it's not what you meant, but nuclear launched submarines sounds a lot cooler than what it is in reality.
Yeah.
It sounds like those fucking proposals.
Sounds like fucking
for those
Stingray.
It sounds like those proposals that were drawn up for like a nuclear bomb accelerated rocket. But obviously a submarine.
What did they call that?
Bring back Project Orion.
That was it.
Yeah, I'm sure the Reese would be fine with that.
So what you have here, in effect, is this very weird, quasi-legal Indian Ocean's territory that's sort of run out of the Foreign Office and sort of run by the UK military, but mainly it exists in this weird liminal militarized state without legal clarity, because if you gave it legal clarity, then the people who are campaigning to have their property and their islands back would have something to buy into. So the more unclear you keep the situation, the better it is for like the UK state, essentially. This can, however, have some very unpleasant consequences if you get stuck on there by accident. This happened a couple of years ago in 2021 when 60 Tamil asylum seekers who were fleeing Sri Lanka after the end of the civil war there in a leaky refugee boat got badly blown off course, were quote unquote rescued by UK Navy ships stationed out of Diego Garcia, and were then brought to the island. At first, they were told that they would be sent on to Canada for asylum processing, but 3 years later, i.e. as of last year, they were still there. They were given a refugee camp, that's a very generous way of phrasing it, which was essentially a tent camp between a 2-meter-high metal fence, which floods in the rain and by all accounts is infested with rats and mice and cockroaches. Like the parents make the children sleep on top of the table so the rats don't get at them at night. It's that kind of refugee camp.
Sake.
And if you're asking, I mean, apart from Britain's love for, denigrating migrants anyway, why that specifically is because they'd landed in, like I said, this kind of legal limbo, basically. The British Indian Ocean Territory is disputed. Mauritius claims it owns it. The British claim that we own it. There's this giant secret semi-secret US base on it. And the authorities on Diego Garcia, again, that's not people who are actually there, but out of the Foreign Office in London, they claimed that, look, whilst these people may be in, a prison camp for 3 years, this is not technically unlawful detention, because they said, well, the Tamils are at any point free to go back to Sri Lanka or anywhere else that would accept them. But of course,
they're free to leave.
Yeah,
by what
but
means?
there are no boats, and also no civilian flights will land on these islands because obviously they don't.
Well, yeah.
I should say
Yeah.
generously, though, the commissioner for the island, again, a guy in Whitehall, said, "Oh, but you can leave on your boat if you like." But the boat was obviously no longer seaworthy because otherwise they would not need to be rescued. And the Tamils had no way to repair it, get food for an onward journey, or otherwise. So they were just stuck there. And the US authorities said, well, you cannot leave this prison camp because we have a secret base here. And the UK authorities for the longest time didn't want to move them, including and up to Yvette Cooper, by the way, because they were so desperately worried that if people worked at the EU could do this, we would be creating a migration route to the UK via the Indian Ocean.
I fucking hate you, Yvette Cooper, with every fibre of my being. Like, I hate all of you pricks in the government at the moment, but Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so this
is why Jeremy Corbyn had to be stopped.
Yes. I mean, unironically, because, like, as we'll get to in a moment, there's, like, the UK government is in the process of signing, like, most of these islands over to Mauritius with an exemption naturally carved out for the big military base. But, you know, Jeremy Corbyn might have, you know, given these islands back to the Chagosians, to the people who, you know, live there or used to live there.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that he has actually, one of the many campaigns, I suppose, that he has been, you know, sort of agitating for before and after he was leader of the Labour Party. So yeah. Of course. The man who might have done literally anything other than, you know, suck the shit out of America's fucking ass on this as well. Like, yeah, it had to be stopped, of course.
So this situation with the 60 Tamils who were like stuck in this island in legal limbo got so bad that even Liz Truss, then Foreign Secretary, ended up writing to Boris Johnson saying, look, we need to fly these people over to the UK to at least process their asylum request because they cannot stay on this island. Not, mind you, that she did that for like humanitarian reasons, but basically because at this point the press had gotten wind of it and was just creating an embarrassment, essentially. So yeah, like I said, despite Yvette Cooper not wanting to appear, quote, weak on migration, the weird thing is that this weird like zone, the British Indian Ocean Territory, does have a Supreme Court, which is baffling because I don't know which legal system they're adjudicating. But like they sent one of their judges to Diego Garcia to hear the case, and that like never happens. They normally just do everything, you know, remotely. But like this one judge was so upset by this case that she flew out to Diego Garcia, and that was the first time in 3 years that like these poor people had their claims heard by someone who wasn't wearing fucking epaulets.
Jesus.
The good news about all of this is, like, of the small group that was still there on the island at the time, they were allowed to move to the UK and claim asylum. I mean, they're now in the hands of the British asylum system, so I'm not saying it's good, but I do think it is still better than being trapped in. Yeah. At least you'll have slightly less cockroaches, knowing what we know about the housing for migrants in the UK, I suppose. So yeah, so what's happening at the moment is this previous lease that was agreed when we bought these islands for $3 million is sort of on its way out the door, and we need to resort this out. So what's happening now is that Mauritius, and they're backed up by several resolutions in the UN General Assembly as well as the International Court of Justice. Say the Chagos Islands belong to us, and therefore we need to make a new deal, and you need to make this any deal about these islands, about the Indian Ocean Territory, must go through us because we are the owners of the island. And I should stress at this point that like the government of Mauritius is not talking on behalf of or for the people of Chagos; they are speaking for themselves. It's important to have that distinction made clear because like people sometimes confuse the two, because like what Mauritius
it's out of
wants,
their own self-interest rather than the people who
yes,
got
because
sort of,
what Mauritius wants out of
ethnically
this is
cleansed.
like, this is a very valuable military base, right? But otherwise it's not worth much, and Mauritius doesn't have the military or the capacity to build or operate this military base for itself. So
they want the
Mauritius,
payout that comes with letting the Americans do their
exactly,
bullshit.
they want the payout. So what happened is in October 2024, a deal sort of in principle was struck between formerly only the UK and Mauritius, but with the Americans looming everywhere in the background, because since the UN resolutions and the International Court of Justice opinions, the UK first spent several years simply ignoring those and pretending they weren't real, but that didn't quite last. So now Britain and Mauritius have reached a sort of deal in principle over sovereignty of these islands, and also keeping this all-important military base on the island of Diego Garcia. Basic terms are the UK will pay Mauritius about £9 billion for a 99-year lease agreement. They will lease the Chagos Islands from Mauritius, which is about £90 million pounds a year. And it's sort of Hong Kong all over again. That was also a 99-year lease from China until we had to give it back in, what was it, 97, something like that?
Somewhere around there.
And this deal apparently also includes some level of right of return for the people of Chagos, but obviously not to the main island, because that's where the big secret military base is. And also, I don't know how that right of return would be enforced in the face of, the most powerful military in the world. The most positive reading that I could find for all of this is like, yeah, the people of Chagos could come back and, resettle some of their islands and then find employment basically working as, cleaners on this particular base if they're allowed to.
Okay.
Yeah, welcome back to your home. But you're not allowed to live on it. But you're allowed to live on the bits
next
of
to
this
it.
reef
You can clean
poke
it
out of the water. Yeah.
Yeah.
How is this situation gonna shake out when America collapses in like a few weeks?
Well, I mean, that's like the thing where why the Trump administration may become more worried about all this, and certainly why the right-wing press and Nigel Farage and stuff are so mad about all this is because even if there is a 99-year lease, where we keep our shit, is that lease could be broken under certain technical conditions. And apparently China is investing more and more in Mauritius. So the paranoid defense thinking is, well, even if we sign a deal now, what if in 10 years, under pressure from the Chinese government, Mauritius says, yeah, well, you're out of there anyway, get the fuck out.
So what if Americans got ethnically cleansed? What then?
Exactly. What if the British and American base got technically ethnically cleansed, and there were the People's Navy liberated PLN got the base? That'd be bad. That's why a lot of the right wing press, apart from the sun setting on the British Empire, etc., that's why they're so bad about it. So at the moment, basically part of the reason that Labour wants to close this agreement is that it secures this base. First up, it secures this base for another 100 years. But secondly, the other big reason is they don't want to take a big legal hit like the Tories did when, the European Court of Justice cancelled those flights to Rwanda about a year and a half ago now. And, because Starmer is Mr. International Law, or he wants to at least be seen to follow the rules, this is now it's sort of a reputational thing. It's important. It's not for getting Chagossians back home and giving them back their lands. It's, the rules-based order means following the rules, for good or ill. Yeah.
No, that's not what it means. We know that.
Yeah. And also, it's certainly in the context of Ukraine at the moment, it makes it a little bit harder when you're telling Russia that, you can't have the Crimea or anything when you have still all these bits of empire that, you took by force and then threw a bunch of people off the land to make room for a military base, which, sounds awfully like what the Russians did in Crimea because they've built a big naval base there. So, like, if you're on your high horse, you can't really have an exact mirror image in your background. You need to cover it back up with, like, a nice legal fiction between you and the treaty in Mauritius, essentially.
Yeah, you gotta make up some shits for why you're allowed to do this, and those evil Russians and President Xi aren't allowed to do these things.
Yes, unless of course you're Donald Trump and you simply say, "Well, what are you gonna do about it, bitch?" But because we're the UK, we have to do the pretense of the liberal order and shit. And if you might remember,
well, even then,
this this is just like a theory of mine. Is like, if you might remember, like a couple weeks ago, there were a lot of like leaks about how the current Attorney General, Lord Hermer, who is who is a genuine like international rules lawyer, and they keep leaking about how he's blocking all these important things that they want to do because he's too obsessed with following the law and the rule.
International rules lawyer makes it sound like he just goes about the globe ruining people's D&D campaigns.
My theory is that part of the reason all of a sudden there was this like massive leaking campaign against him is because apparently Hermer at least is insisting on following international law, like the ICJ rulings on the ownerships of the Chagos
How did
Islands.
this get in there?
Exactly. So like they obviously the ideal is to do like the dirtiest deal possible, but if this our Attorney General insists on a right of return, then that might scupper the whole thing. So my theory is that part of the leaks were like probably prodded by the Americans or something to get the guy with too many opinions out the door, or like to at least shut him up for a while.
I mean, if there's one thing we've learned from the last, 20 years, 25 years of Western governments, is that if you just assume the most cynical possible option, you will not be far off the mark.
Yeah, 100%. So so there's this agreement which was sort of in the third quarter of last year. There's this agreement in principle, but since then, there have been elections in Mauritius which put, and this is from the Times, so naturally, a pro-China candidate in office who, as far as I could tell, isn't so much acting pro-China as pro-Mauritius because, he, unlike, I think, the previous guy, recognized that he basically had the UK and by extension the US sort of over a barrel and said, no, you have to, like, the previous deal that you were trying to negotiate is shit. I want more money and I want more of it up front, which, correct. And also, like, he renegotiate, which I also think is fantastic, that this deal for $9 billion is now inflation linked. So, like,
what a time to do it.
That is that is. You know what? You got to hand it to him. If this is pro-China, then by God.
Yeah, by God. Yeah. But obviously,
can't wait until this guy owns my local council.
Obviously, this has made the deal, vastly more expensive because, we can't inflate away the value of the debt anymore. And also, like Biden, who was just kind of, in general, in favor of this deal because, we follow it's liberalism, but you get to keep your military base, so it's nice. But now, of course, the Trump administration is in. And some of them may want to be more anti-China, and like some people hate this proposed deal because they're still worried about like Chinese influence and this base, et cetera, et cetera. So like, while this is technically a deal between the UK and Mauritius purely on like a diplomatic level, this giant base means that the person really making the decision about whether or not this deal goes ahead is Donald Trump. And whether or not he stays okay with this deal is like, who the fuck knows? Because like as of last week when Star was in Washington, he said, "Oh yeah, that looks fine, and it's not, it's not a problem." But like tomorrow or next week, whoever like is in the room with him,
who knows? Who knows what the last person he spoke to will say about it?
Exactly. Yeah. And David Lammy went on the record either today or yesterday saying, "Oh yeah, no, we do need America's approval before any of this deal is final. Just, once again, signaling, complete bitch status for the UK.
Yeah.
And of course, in the meantime, and this is sort of where I started with this, is like, in the meantime, the Tories and Reform and most of the UK press fucking hate this deal because we are handing sovereignty over to, some brown people, not necessarily the Chagossians, but certainly the government of Mauritius, and, it's another, fucking postage stamp of the British Empire that's fading from existence, so they simply cannot deal with this. Kemi Badenoch called it, I think yesterday, an immoral surrender.
Yeah, but she can fuck all the way off, can't she?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, just someone give her a set of jangling keys and tell her to go away.
Yeah, a lot of
someone on Facebook is being woke. You better go and fucking yell at them.
She's not the only one who's big mad about it, though. But like, some others are mad that we are now, paying Mauritius for leasing this base, which we have generously given to the Americans. Which, like, just the affront that the UK would pay, non-white people to use their land, legitimately or otherwise, question mark, is of course insufferable. Or as Ed Davey of the Liberal Democrats put it, why is the UK making, quote, significant payments to Mauritius up front at a time when winter fuel payments have been scrapped?
I mean, fair.
Yeah,
like,
but if we have the idiot base,
I love that we can't just let the Yanks rent it off Mauritius. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we have to be in the middle there to feel important. It's like, no, we're players on the world stage. Shut up.
Yeah. And also, I'm like, if you agreed to be like, the US's beard in this whole fucking relationship, of course you're the one who's going to have to pay. Like, that just makes sense to me. Like that, But of course, the other thing that like the fucking right wing press and that idiot like policy exchange report I started from earlier are like big mad is because they're like, well, if this whole deal goes ahead, some people might get the strange idea that rulings from the United Nations and the International Court of Justice might just apply to the United Kingdom, and who knows what kind of precedent that might set. We didn't do Brexit simply to get the International Court of Justice sitting on our blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so like that's
it's time we left our left the jurisdiction of the ICJ, the ICC, the European Court of Justice, like all of these things that are holding Britain back from holding on to a fucking island that we stole in the fucking 19th century.
Yes. But so that's sort of where
priorities.
So that's sort of where the story stands.
What does the Magna Carta say about the Chagos Islands?
I mean, it is a place with a lot of fishing weirs, so maybe it does have something to say. Like, it's not entirely out of the question. So, like, this is sort of where it stands and why people are sort of mad about it at the moment. It's basically this weird blip in the middle of the Indian Ocean that nobody would care about, not even Britain, had it not had this insane, nuclear-armed fucking, Metal Gear Solid base on it, essentially.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, of course, is under which circumstances whose right to sovereignty and self-determination counts and should be backed up, like Palestinians don't have that, Chagossians don't have that, Ukraine definitely has that. We should be arming them to the fucking teeth, So it's just one of those interesting little, when it's no longer in our material advantage, then, it's like, it's not so easy anymore, is it? It's a little bit different then, Are
kind
the
of
people of
grey
Chagos actually people? If they don't have a piece of paper that says, I used to own this plantation or work there, do they really have like a right to live there?
I'm going to say yes.
Having interacted with the British state, probably not, according to them anyway.
And
I'm going to say we should just give them the islands and we should just tell the Yanks to fuck off.
that
Yes.
would seem like the best solution for me as well. But
Yeah.
like my gut
The
feeling,
Yanks-
sadly,
The Yanks have got enough military bases, like everywhere else. They'll just have to make do with them.
What we do
yeah.
is we keep the base, but the Yanks are out, and then the Chagosians can sell that base and all its secrets to China for
Yes.
help rebuild the infrastructure on the island. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Someone
Exactly.
promote this
Deal.
man to a high position in the UN. He solved it.
So yeah, like, look, in all of this, at the end of this, what I fervently hope but do not expect is that, you know, the people who are forcibly removed from these islands and, you know, either themselves or their parents had to, like, watch their fucking pets get shot in the surf, you know, as they were forcibly displaced. I hope they get to come back, and I hope it's theirs again. It's a low hope, but
yeah.
that's what should happen. But we'll,
Like I say,
you know,
fingers crossed for
We'll
the
find
inevitable
out, I
demise
guess.
of America, because that'll probably, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Once the Americans aren't paying for it anymore, presumably we won't want the island. So
yeah. Anyway,
But,
so that's
anyway.
that's your lot for this evening.
yeah,
I hope we all learned something.
Before we go on to commentariat, I just want to give an update about, like, you know, that fucking, like, weird-headed piss baby I was talking about earlier, Jance Dance Vance.
Oh,
He is
who?
currently, right, you know, so-called second most powerful man in the world. He is currently on Twitter beefing with the Hell Dude.
No fucking way.
Yeah. Do you not have a country to run? Like, you fucking
Jesus fucking
dipshit.
Christ.
Look, there's only so many. There's only
Amazing.
There's only so many Duplo blocks that you can play with in one day.
On the other hand, he did, I think, earlier today say that, you know, France and the UK were some random countries who didn't really contribute to our last colonial adventures, and that got everybody big mad. And I did think that was
Yeah,
quite
well,
funny
do you know what I mean? Yeah. Do you want to hear, like, some of these fucking posts of his? They're so good.
Oh
like.
yeah.
Yeah, go,
So,
go.
Yeah.
The
Hell
we
Dude-
should stress,
the
by
Hell
the way,
Dude-
this is the current vice president of the United States.
Yeah, yeah. That's a load-bearing current, I think. Yeah, the Hell Dude posted a fucking New York Post article about Vance and his family being moved to an undisclosed location to avoid protesters at a ski resort over the weekend, and said, "For all the tough talk, these people are wildly, insanely soft." And JD Vance quoted it with, "These people are such idiots. We had a great time during our weekend in Vermont. We barely noticed the protesters, and almost everyone we met was kind and generous. And Vermont is beautiful." And then, like, you know what I mean? And you think, okay, he's coping quite well there. And then in a follow-up post, in quotes, "A real man would force the Secret Service to post his kid's weekend address on the internet," said Jeff Computers, a very smart and well-adjusted human being. It's like, no, you've fallen into the trap there where you use someone's screen name as if it's their given name. Like, is this your first day on the internet, you fucking fool? Jeff Computers, come the fuck on, man.
Leafing through the big phone book for C for computers.
That's just a nickname. His real name is Jeffrey.
Yeah. Fucking, yeah. Serious business running the American state, like, yeah, definitely. Anyway, commentary at time.
Hurrah.
Please, Mr. Computers was my father.
Yeah.
I love that TV series.
Even skeptics of the West's claims to moral superiority should accept that a more idealistic political culture offered statesmen with their eyes on the history books an important inducement to better behaviour. It is to that fading culture of idealism that we owe our foreign aid program and billionaires like Bill Gates who spend their money eradicating malaria rather than buying political influence.
Oh, go
Is that comment or
fuck
commentary?
yourself.
I'm going to say this is commentary because only a member of the commentary could write something so kicked in the head by a horse coded.
yeah. This
Yep.
is commentariat.
Yeah, commentary.
Yeah, that was James Marriott in the Times. In dark times, ideals matter more than ever. Fuck off, James.
Did he write this article for homework or something?
All right, next one. Even if this brings peace, the bleeding heart liberal lefties will never give any credit to Trump, because to do so would be to admit that they've read this wrong all along. Is that comment or commentary?
Bleeding heart liberal lefties.
Liberal lefties. Firstly, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, those bleeding hearts that want the war to continue. Those ones.
Comment.
Yeah, comment. I feel like comment as well.
That was a comment in the Daily Mail.
Hey.
Zelensky looks for peace deal with Trump. Ukrainian leader says he regrets White House row and is ready to work under Donald's strong leadership.
Donald's.
Got his fucking number there, hasn't he? Like, do you know what I mean? Trump has proved since taking office that he likes to get things done no matter what gets in his way. Some may find that unappealing, but I believe, after decades of weak, hollow leaders, he will bring change for the better. Of course, there's a price. There's always a price. However, Trump has to now use that decisiveness and fire his vice president. He is obviously not up to the task. He's loud, tactless, and speaks without thinking. Trump has gone on record as being a great admirer of the late Queen. That respect has now been transferred to her son, the King. Our soldiers serve in the name of the monarch. They serve without question, to the best of their ability and skill. They are well trained and brave. Many have served in conflicts and have either been seriously injured or killed. For Vance to degrade them in such a way is unacceptable. He is just a man in a suit, like many world leaders, who has never served in defense of their country or in the defense of other countries.
Fuck.
He knows nothing of sacrifice, pain, or grief. He has to go and go quickly. He has deservedly now lost all chance of being the next president. While criticising this man, I'll also take the opportunity to throw shade at our PM and the treatment of our veterans. Many need help and are not given it. Many struggle and live on the streets where their problems have driven them. If Vance's lack of wisdom does some good, it will be to remind everyone of their contribution to our freedoms. Is that comment or commentary?
Fucking hell.
The use of throwing shade there makes me suspect it was Rob.
Fuck you! Why is that something that you would usually quote or? I mean, the length of it suggests surely that's a comment. Surely,
I'm going commentary.
Commentary, yeah.
That was a comment in the Express. J.D. Vance branded a clown for slur on Britain's 636 war dead.
Who's counting?
Certainly not J.D. Vance.
NATO Article 5 has only been invoked once. The idea that an attack on one is an attack on all is fundamental to the protection of our way of life. The one occasion it was used was after 9/11 by the United States, when almost 20 countries supported Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. To watch the US abandon its international allies in this way is heartbreaking. I cannot let Vance's comments about a real war from random countries go unchecked, because we can all argue one way or the other about who he meant, but the bottom line is it doesn't matter. If you sacrificed your son on the altar of Operation Enduring Freedom, whether you were from the UAE, the UK, or the US, you didn't love your son any less. You don't miss your son any less. His ideals of patriotism and his courage to be part of something greater than himself was not any less. Your sacrifice should never be looked down on in this way. He won't, but Vance needs to check his privilege. A lot of what the Americans are saying is fair. European collective defence has been a joke for 30 years. But you cannot just torch the whole edifice and expect to be taken seriously. There have been plenty of brave, strong, and importantly, joint endeavours from European nations, including our own, in the pursuit of what has largely been US foreign policy. With that comes a responsibility to respect that sacrifice that the US leadership team have singularly failed to acknowledge in their fast reset of global relations. I read Vance's book and found him quite interesting.
Jesus Christ, how's it still going?
Is that comment or commentary?
Fuck you is what it is.
God.
Did you have to click see more if this on this? Assuming it was a comment.
Commentariat.
Oh, I'm going to say comment. Fuck it.
Yeah, it's cope and a comment.
That was former Veterans Minister, not a real job, Johnny Mercer in the Express.
Oh, that
Oh,
fucking guy.
Jesus fucking Christ, that guy.
Yeah, but he read Vance's book and found him quite interesting, so there you go.
The only thing, well, there's two interesting things about Johnny Mercer. The first thing that he, there's some really weird shit where he was trying to, expose SAS war crimes because he thinks British troops should have honor, which is, a weird thing. But the more interesting one was that he's the guy who was, got big mad because... see if I remember the quote correctly, that somebody in the Plymouth Herald implied that his wife was a prostitute.
Yes, that's the guy. All right, last one.
Oh my god, there's another
You'll
one.
be grateful to hear it's shorter.
Oh, thank Christ.
You're right.
The PPI firms will be rubbing their hands together for a class action of dossers and dolites.
Oh.
Is that comment or commentariat?
Fucking what?
Commentariat.
Yeah, this is weird, inscrutable shit, so this is commentariat.
Dorsals and dolites. Yeah, commentariat.
Is this fucking Little John?
No, it was a comment in the Daily Mail. The article was, "Do not take" warning issued as paracetamol is urgently recalled from UK shelves. I think they just mislabeled it as aspirin or something. It was very unclear as to what the emergency was.
Boring.
I love it when an emergency is unclear.
Yeah. Yeah, imagine though, all the people on the dole rubbing their hands with glee at the money they're going to get from Boots for selling them aspirin. Yeah, anyway, that's your work. Glad you enjoyed fucking Story Hour with Johnny Mercer, who is indistinguishable from a comment.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. He spends that much time in the comment section himself, though. That's the problem. You can hear Plymouth Herald right through that.
Yeah, the first real posters MP.
All right, that's us. We have a slightly more packed than usual schedule for this month, which is about all I'm going to say.
It's all David's fault.
There will be the normal 2 bonus episodes a month. There will also be extra episodes coming out on the free feed, so you will get more. It won't cost you anything extra. We're not gating it at all, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't subscribe to the Patreon. Patreon.com/PracticeCast. 2 episodes extra a month, and Discord access, and no, that's all. That's all we offer. Twitch streams, twitch.tv/PracticeCast. That's Sunday evenings.
Yeah, they're back.
6:30 until 9.
Yeah, we're doing them again, or doing them still at this point.
Yeah, Alistair can't count them, but...
No. Yeah, so
No.
I think I've labelled episode 5, episode 4 in the fucking Twitch details, so that it'll look like we skip an episode, but there's no episodes missing on the YouTube when they go up.
I kept that as well when I transferred it to the YouTube, so...
Excellent.
Yeah, go if you missed any of the VODs and you want to watch them for whatever reason, they are on the YouTube.
Yeah, in a playlist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Merch also available, practicecast.gmail.com, but do join us on the Patreon, patreon.com/practicecast. Okay, yes. Bye now.
Bye.
Yeah, join us on the Discord. It's fun.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Said convincingly. See ya.
It's
bye.
It's fun.
Bye.
Bye.
It's so much fun.
Rob, say bye.
It's fun. Bye. Fun saying bye. Bye.
Yeah, see ya.